All right, what's up, guys? Michael and Jason here from Tech Heads, and oh, hold on, sorry, I have some audio difficulties here.
Yeah, I told you there was something going on.
Yeah, well, I was still joined in the Hangout from when we were testing it, and then it started playing in the background. Anyways, sorry, start over. Hey guys, what's up? Michael and Jason from Tech Heads here. It's Monday evening, and earlier today, Apple and all the big guys over there took the stage for the WWDC Keynote, the big annual developers conference where they introduce the new versions of the desktop software, the mobile software, and then this year they also talked about the new software updates for the Apple Watch. Um, it's a relatively boring keynote today, but there was some cool things in there. So Jason and I are going to sit down and just kind of go back and forth and talk about what we like, what we didn't like, and just give it a quick discussion. So, Jason, you ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's go ahead and start with OS 10. That's what they started with today at the keynote. Not a lot going on there.
Just a lot of improvements, a lot of performance improvements.
Yeah, right. A lot under the hood stuff,
Mhm.
which is good. There actually wasn't a lot added functionality wise to OS 10 or iOS 9. Today was, I mean, this year it looks like they really just kind of stepped back and did a lot of under the hood performance overhauls.
Mhm.
They threw in a couple bells and whistles here and there with some functionality and some features that were cool. I mean, they're good ideas, but there wasn't any like brand new, brand spanking, new features, which I think is a good thing. I think that they needed to take a year and actually kind of focus on getting the software running well before they started to throw in any more features.
Yeah, there was a lot of cool little things that were added. Um, one of the one of the cool things were the gestures. There was new gestures. The did the wiggle and made the mouse big. That was kind of cool because I do lose my mouse quite often, so that'll be kind of cool. And then I don't use the Mail app actually on my iMac, so but there were some swipe features added to that.
Yeah,
Another,
I do use I do use the mail app on OS 10, and I'm curious to see because I mean obviously we're all familiar with using the swiping gestures in the mail app on the iPhone and the iPad. When they were doing the demonstration, they were using a trackpad, Bluetooth trackpad for the desktop. Um, I don't see why it wouldn't, but I'm hoping that those swiping gestures will work on the Magic Mouse as well, because that's what I use. I don't have a trackpad, on my desktop, but I could definitely see using that because I'm just so used to it on the iPad and the iPhone now.
yeah. Another cool thing that I thought was pretty useful was the audio detector in Safari. How if you have a bunch of apps open and then something starts playing, you can just go up to the where the URL bar is and mute it if you wanted to straight from there. No matter what tab you're on, you can mute it from there. And then if you, I think it was just a right click or maybe even a left click on it, but you can go straight to the tab where the music was playing. So that was a really nice feature that was added. I thought that
Yeah,
was really cool.
yeah, they kind of took a page out of Chrome's book, not
Hmm.
not Chromebook, but Chrome's
Right.
playbook, the
Yep.
browser, because they do that now. They have that little icon, that little audio indicator when it shows you what tab is playing the audio.
Mhm.
So yeah, Safari has lacked that, and
Yep.
that's definitely pretty cool.
And speaking of taking things from other systems, the split view was added, which I'm glad they did, but I mean, it was just it looks just like Windows. Windows 7 came out, they rolled out the split view. I use it all the time on my Windows machine, and I will use it a lot on the new Mac,
Yeah,
on the new El Capitan.
yeah, terrible name, by the way. You and I both think it's a
Yeah,
really weird name. We get it. We understand the mentality behind making it part of Yosemite when this is really just kind of a spec bump to Yosemite,
yeah,
but really just a weird name to have to say out loud when you start
yeah,
talking about it in discussion.
yeah. I'm not gonna have fun saying it.
No,
Sounds pretty lame.
let's just start calling it the number, 10.11 or
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
is.
But the split
Um,
view was a good addition. I'm gonna enjoy that.
Definitely, I will too. It's something I don't use a Windows machine anywhere except for my day job, but I've definitely have gotten used to that feature, and I try to do it sometimes on my Mac here, and I'll manually kind of position windows to replicate it.
Yeah.
But having it that's something that seems like something they should have put in a long time ago. I don't know why they drug their feet on it, but glad to see it in there.
Yeah, and I thought the biggest enhancement was Spotlight. I think Spotlight looks amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Spotlight does look great, but it's really the brain behind Spotlight. I guess searching in general.
Yep.
For Spotlight, they put it in the Mail app. That contextual search is huge. And in fact, what is it called? Fantastical. It's a really popular calendar app for. I think it's on iOS and the desktop version, but basically that's why it's so great is you can kind of use contextual phrases to schedule appointments instead of having to just set your parameters manually. You can say, hey, schedule a meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. With John at the coffee house, and it can read your input and do exactly what you want. And that's looks like what they're doing with the searching now is you don't have to be so computer speak about it. You can just kind of talk to the search bar the way you would talk in a conversation and have it understand what you want and give you the results back, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was good. Yep.
And then what you touched on earlier when we were talking the performance enhancements with having the desktop apps utilizing Metal now.
Yeah, its own API. Yep, that's going to be very, very cool. I mean, they said there was going to be a 50% increase in rendering for apps, and then along with the Metal, the Metal framework, Apple, or not Apple, Adobe rather, actually announced that they're going to be adopting Metal for all of its OS X apps, OS 10 apps. So that's going to be pretty cool. There's going to be they said there was actually a 40%.
I think Adobe said 8x performance increase for After Effects rendering.
Right. Yeah, but they were saying that graphics rendering was a 40 for OpenGL, and the rendering for CPU load and improving the battery life. So that's going to be huge for anybody that's doing a lot of editing and rendering on laptops when they're out in the field, and then just the performance enhancements for things like After Effects, and they haven't said that they're going to do it for Photoshop yet, but they did. They launched the GPU support for performance boosts in Lightroom CC and Adobe Camera Raw. So
yeah, I can't imagine they wouldn't do it for the whole suite. I mean, Premiere and then like you said, Photoshop. I mean, why not if it's going to give you that performance boost? Because that's one of the things you see now with like the Mac Pro and then the 5K iMac. People running performance benchmarks are saying just how well Apple has utilized their own software like Final Cut and Motion to run on their own hardware, and the rendering times and the exporting times are just crazy in the favor of like Final Cut versus Adobe Premiere, just because Adobe hasn't optimized the software yet to run Apple's hardware. So it looks like this is going to be maybe a stepping stone for them to really start.
Yeah. Adopting the Metal framework is going to be huge.
Yeah, it's going to be good for gamers too. Actually, I mean, everybody always jokes that you can't game on a Mac. I mean, I do. I'll admit, I have a PS4 behind me where I did the majority of my gaming, but I will play some games on my Mac here and there. You and I have played, Portal 2 and nothing crazy taxing on the Mac. But one of the biggest things has always been, you can't because of the performance issues, and a lot of people end up getting, boot camp and they run Windows, dual boot. This might be a chance for, the game developers to get some much better performance out of their games running natively on OS 10, which will be good for gamers.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well, that was really about it for OS 10, I think. Weird name, performance boosts. Our favorite seems to be the searching and then the split view. So let's go ahead.
To jump out of that real quick, are you sure you don't have anything else going on audio-wise? Because I hear a lot of feedback every once in a while. Like it goes in and out.
It's probably because my mic is super sensitive. I should probably turn down the sensitivity. I'm going to try to hold real still and not move.
It's not always when you're moving. It's just every once in a while, like there's just a lot of like weird feedback.
Sorry.
So hopefully it's not. It may or may not. If you're not hearing it, it might just be my end. But hopefully it's not going to be recorded. I guess we'll see.
Okay.
So yeah, moving on to iOS 9.
Yep. Probably less going on in iOS 9 in terms of just like in your face surface level features. than there was on OS 10.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing they really focused on was improving Siri, which, let's face it, needed to be improved.
Yeah.
They said it's going to be 40% more accurate and faster. And then aside from that, the big thing was what they were calling a proactive assistant or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yep. That's
Where,
pretty cool.
where she could, like, I say she, where Siri could recognize, I guess, your patterns and your trends and your day-to-day activity, and then automatically trigger events depending on what you're doing on your phone, which is actually pretty cool. It's pretty, if it works well, if you're a person that has a routine and a habit that'll actually benefit, that's pretty awesome.
One thing I didn't like about, and I don't know, maybe it's just me overthinking it, but how it automatically adds items to your calendar. I don't always want things added to my calendar, so I don't know. I'll have to see how that works, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
it was putting like tentative invitations that you hadn't responded to on your calendar just to let you see, I think, what your day could potentially
Mhm.
look like, or
I
check.
guess maybe it's just a reminder thing. Maybe that'll be how it works.
Yeah, I think somebody, I was reading the comments on, I think it was Mac Rumors, they were talking about that feature, and somebody brought up the point of, what if you get spam that has, like invitation information, and all of a sudden your calendar going to be populated with a bunch of spam appointments.
Yeah.
Um, so that,
One thing I thought was kind of cool is the suggestive caller feature.
yeah,
That was
that
pretty
was
neat.
neat. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
How it can go through all your email and stuff like that, and figure out who it might be. I thought that was just slick. It was just a cool thing.
Yeah, and just like that was actually really cool. If you get a lot of phone calls, I guess.
Yeah.
Who calls anybody on the phone anymore? Not me. Uh, so just like on the OS 10, iOS 9 is going to have much improved search. So they're
Mhm.
and not only is it improved, but they're also releasing an API for searching for developers. So when you search, you'll actually be able to, search content within apps, and then pull in, when you click on the result, actually launch into that app
Yeah. The
with
deep
your
links are
results.
really cool. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
gonna be
deep links.
that's
Yes,
gonna
that's
be
good.
neat.
I'm glad we're doing this together because you're remembering terminology that I was. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I like that a lot. And we should touch on this in terms of the searching. And this is something that Apple has been real. Or I guess Tim Cook, who is the face of Apple more or less, has really been adamant about in recent interviews. He went into detail and length about it when he was sat down with Charlie Rose a few months ago. Um, the privacy that Apple was focusing on. All these new features and all of these searching and data mining that it does. They're really, wanting people to know that this is all happening, on the device. It's not mining their data to be sold for any reason, to, curate advertisements for them. It's all basically being done for the benefit of the user, and all their information is remaining safe.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have skeptics out there that are saying, oh yeah, whatever, that's a bunch of bullshit. Um, but
Apple's always been really good about that, though. I mean, they've kept privacy very high on their priority list, and they said it multiple times for this, and then something else. I forget what it was, but I'm sure we'll get to it in a minute. But they said it again. They said it 2 or 3 times. How they're keeping everything on the phone, no third party. They're not giving the information to anybody. So yeah, that
yeah,
was very, very good of them.
if any of you guys watching this or listening, if you ever have a chance, if you haven't seen the Charlie Rose interview that Tim Cook did, I think it was last fall. And then he had a speech that he gave at I don't remember the exact name, but it was a security kind of conference here in the past week or so. I highly recommend going to check it out. It's definitely something that he and Apple are pretty passionate about. And they actually take some digs at people or at companies like Google and Facebook, who are basically, I mean, not necessarily maliciously, but definitely building their business around your data.
Google's terrible about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it's definitely interesting, definitely worth the watch if you're interested in that kind of stuff. I recommend it. He's Tim Cook is very well spoken and a very intelligent, person, and he definitely appears, at least publicly, to care a lot about users' privacy, which is a good thing, I think.
yeah, yeah. And these days, I mean, that's got to be on everybody's mind up front all the time. Your personal information staying with you, because that's just the way it is these days now. You know?
Yeah, definitely. It's a scary world. So anything that we get that'll, help us is good.
Now, I think I
Um,
missed a piece of this. I believe that's where they also started talking about wallet.
yeah, they did. So they made some improvements to Apple Pay. We'll kind of segue into that. So just first of all, Discover user funds are coming in this fall. They were kind of like the last holdout. I haven't done any research or reading to understand why they were holding out when Visa and Mastercard and Amex were already on there. I don't know. But Discover's coming to Apple Pay. They're now Apple Pay. Apple is now working with third-party, I guess, merchant vendor software companies to begin accepting Apple Pay. They mentioned Square, which you
Having its own little, a little Square reader, a little NFC reader. I thought that was awesome.
I think that's very cool. I know you and I have both used Square not only as a seller but also as a buyer. And a lot of small businesses and places we've been have used it. That coffee shop we went to down in Charlotte last year was using it. I mean, it's Square's a big deal. I think some people like to write them off as being kind of a mom and pop, operation, but they obviously just don't live in large enough cities to know what they really are.
I think they're gold for small businesses. I think they're amazing.
Yeah, so that's awesome that Apple Pay will be working for Square readers. That's great for merchants. And then also they said that Apple Pay is coming to the UK in July, which is good because right now I think it's US only. And they're now going to start adding company like store credit cards, like your Kohl's card or your JCPenney card or whatever. It will now work with Apple Pay as well as reward and loyalty cards for vendors, which is a good thing because I remember reading in the early days of Apple Pay last fall how a lot of vendors were skeptical and didn't want to sign up to be Apple Pay partners because they didn't want customers to all of a sudden decline in using their loyalty cards and their membership cards, because they're using these phones for their transactions. They're forgetting or not willing to pull out their rewards cards. So that update alone will probably, in my opinion, see the adoption rate of Apple Pay for merchants probably start to pick up even more.
Yeah, no, I love seeing this starting to open up and be more accepted. So
yeah, I love it. I mean, Apple Pay is probably, I think, the coolest feature that Apple has released in a long, long, long time. I use it on my watch, use it on the phone all the time. Whenever I see somebody that accepts it, like I all of a sudden I find myself wanting to go there to eat or go there to buy my stuff because I get to use Apple Pay. It's kind of a dorky thing, but it's really awesome. But like you said, they're renamed with the addition of all these loyalty cards and membership cards. They're renaming Passbook Wallet, which probably is what it should have been named in the first place. My guess is maybe they held off because they didn't want to be confused with Google Wallet. I don't know, but basically Passbook's going away and now it's called Wallet to hold all your cards.
Yeah, cool.
So, yep.
Let's see here. I also have my next note I have here was the news. So I guess that was something that was built into.
It's its own new app.
It's its own new app. All right.
Yeah,
and they have it built for you.
Yeah, it's actually a lot like what was that app I used? Flipboard. Remember Flipboard?
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, it's basically you go in. It's a new app. It's called News. It's on the iPad, and they showed it on the iPad. I don't think they showed it on the iPhone. If they did, I don't remember.
They said it would work on the iPhone, and the only notes I have for it is it's content consumption on steroids. I mean, it was just that you could customize to what you wanted to see, and it would pull in news articles from hundreds of magazines and online magazines, online sources, and bring it right to your face there.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically like a digital magazine that is comprised of articles from other online sources, blogs and news sites, and you go through the initial setup and you talk about what site you select, sites that you do read, brands that you read about, topics that you're interested in, and it basically just starts to curate and build this daily edition of a newspaper, so to speak, or a magazine filled with interactive articles. That was the big word they used a lot too, was interactive, videos and pictures, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like a one-stop shop to catch up on all the places that you read daily. Looking forward to trying that out.
I thought the search feature was awesome. It was so fast in real time, and they tested it, or she demoed it with Swift, and so it obviously brought up a couple things with Taylor Swift, but then it segued into their new Swift 2 coming out,
Right.
which is what we should probably maybe just go to next.
Well, there's a few more things I want to talk about with iOS first, because we kind of, now that we're on the topic of, well, of the iPad, Maps was something they update a lot with you and I, neither of us live in large cities where public transit is a big deal. But the transit feature or focus or addition, I don't even know what to call it. There's basically a new transit dedicated section to the Maps app, where they've gone to these major cities and they have basically, constructed blueprints of all the public transportation systems and integrate that information into Maps for commuters to get, schedules of trains and subways and the times and the location of all the stations and the best routes, which is pretty awesome. I mean, if you live in a city like that and you get to utilize public transit, I mean, now you've got all that information right there in your one app, which is probably a big deal for a lot of those people. So that's good to see Apple doing that.
It's also huge for visitors and tourists, to figure out how to get around the city. No, I think that's a great addition.
Yeah, that's the first thing Heather said. My wife, when I was telling her about some of the stuff earlier at dinner, I mentioned the transit, and that's exactly what she said. She said it'd be great for somebody that goes to a city that has no idea what they're doing or where they're going. Now they can figure out, how to navigate and get around.
Both of us have been in those situations where we're just looking at the walls, like, okay, we got to go here, 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 here. So
yeah, exactly.
That'll be good.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. The biggest thing, we were talking about this earlier. Of everything they announced today, in my opinion, this was the biggest, and it was the split view multitasking, true multitasking now on the iPad, working in two apps in real time together, simultaneously on the iPad, have side by side, swiping in and out, changing apps, and being able to have them open at the same time and work. That's a game changer to me. In my opinion, that right there puts the iPad right back at the level, or very close to the level, of a traditional laptop in terms of what you can do on it.
Yeah, no. I'm glad it's there too. And of course, they're not the first to do this. I can't remember if it was Android, if it was Windows Mobile, but I'm glad Apple has incorporated it now. I missed the demo, but I'm excited about it though.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome to be able to do that. And then they've also got this new picture-in-picture feature where you can have any video playing and basically shrink the video down to a size that you want it, and then position it on the screen over top of another app that you're working in.
That's so cool.
It's really neat. And like I said, for your everyday, probably casual user, it really makes the iPad much more attractive all of a sudden again, to be able to multitask. And I think that when you figure that there's this rumor of the 12-inch, the larger iPad, iPad Pro is what they're dubbing it on the rumors. You figure the larger screen with the multitasking, throw a Bluetooth keyboard on there or one of your little shell cases. All of a sudden, that $500, $600 iPad is almost as completely functional as the $800, $900 MacBook Air, for your everyday user that just needs it for your email and your web browsing and your Twitter and your Facebook and writing in Microsoft Word or Pages or whatever.
Yeah. Every year, every update, they're making iOS a little bit easier to create content, which is the direction they need to go in, and I think they're doing a great job of it so far.
Yeah, definitely. And I as much as I dislike the Microsoft Surface, and I've used a couple of them in the past at work, demoing some stuff. I really think that the multitasking, functionality of the Surface forced Apple to do this, because that was one of the shots that Microsoft kept taking in the advertising was the multitasking. Now, Apple's kind of taking the step to say, okay, we've kind of remedied that. Now what you got? Now what are you going to say about us? That kind of thing. So, and honestly, if you think about it, the iPad is, while a lot of industries and companies are using it, for me personally, it doesn't get used a lot anymore. It became kind of a boring device for me because I was either sitting at my desk at my iMac, or if I was doing something, I did it right on my phone, or I jumped over to my MacBook Air for any intensive, work, heavy word editing. I think this really does breathe a breath of excitement back into the iPad in terms of what it's capable of as a productivity machine versus just a consumption of media machine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep. I'll
anyways,
have to. I mean, my situation. Both my kids have have my iPads now, so I might have to grab one of them back.
yeah. Well, that's a good. It will. They did say, I'm pretty sure that it will only work. The split view will only work on the iPad Air 2. It's not going to. I guess because of performance resource requirements.
Sure.
It's the only one powerful enough to do it.
Yep.
So enough about that. But to me, that was my favorite feature of the day. With the exception of, I guess, the new version of the watch software. That was like the biggest thing out of the OS 10 and the iOS.
Well, not that it's big for me personally, or you for that matter, but I think for developers, I think the biggest news was Swift 2 being open source. They're making it open source now. I think that's going to be a huge game changer.
Yeah, well, you heard I guess you were still watching the Keynote, but when they announced that, I mean, it was like the crowd erupted. I mean, that you could tell that was probably their favorite thing of the day. Yeah. All those developers in the audience, they went nuts for that thing.
And when a developer gets excited about something like that, users should get very excited about something like that, because that's just going to make our experience so much sweeter going forward.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be great.
It's good, and it's kind of a shocking, I guess, development. See what I did there? Mm-hmm. That they went that way. And I mean, they went open source with ResearchKit that they announced back in March for health organizations to do their research and all their work with those apps. But putting just their own language right out there in the open for developers it was shocking to me, but definitely huge.
Well, he made a huge statement saying that he wants Swift 2 to be programming language that's going to be used 20 years from now. So we'll see how that plays out. You never know with those kinds of things, but that was a pretty bold statement that he made.
Yeah, it's exciting. You're right. As a user, neither one of us are programmers. But as a user, you're right. You should get excited because you think about all the great things that have been created already by developers, and you're starting more incentives, to do the things that they love.
Okay, so we're running close to 30 minutes now. So the next big thing was the Apple Watch updates. For me, I guess the one thing that probably they needed to do was native apps. They needed to get those things running on the watch itself. That's a big update. I think that's going to be good. They made some new faces, new time faces, which are pretty cool.
Yeah, this the whole time I was watching, because I have an Apple Watch. I love it. I use it every day. Watch OS 2, which is this new version that they're launching this fall. It probably should have been the version that actually shipped with the watch. I really think Apple they got to the point where their back was against the wall and they had to get something out. They had to get the watch out. So they put out a version. It works well enough. I mean, people love it. But this is the version that should have shipped with it. Mm-hmm. Right? You got the custom faces, with your photos. Why couldn't that have been part of version 1? I mean, honestly, why couldn't you put your photo as a wallpaper? But now with the native third-party apps, not only is that going to be great for performance and not having to be tethered to your iPhone as much, but they're letting you put third-party complications on your watch face, so you can.
That's really cool.
Data. That's going to be huge. They made some tweaks to the having multiple sets of friends, adding a friend right from the watch instead of from the watch app. The fitness apps. This was cool. So native third-party apps on the watch now. Their data will now feed into the health app and the fitness app or the health app and fitness app on the watch and the iPhone. Because I actually ran into this exact same problem. I've been using the Apple built-in fitness app for my runs. I tried the Nike fitness app for my run one time, and at the end of it realized that it didn't actually sync back to my health app, and it didn't marry well. So I'm glad to see they're not going to let the third-party guys get in there and contribute to the health app.
I like how third party now have access to the accelerometer. That was pretty cool. The little demo that they made with the swing, I think that was cool. And that can be applied to so many things. So that's going to be really neat.
They basically opened up every feature. I think because they did the Taptic engine, the accelerometer, the microphone. They're letting you play short length video back now.
Yeah.
This is great. This is going to take the watch to a whole new level. I'm just hoping they don't release a second version of the hardware in 6 months' time.
Yeah, time travel is also pretty cool. You can kind of see how things are going to go in the future with the what's it now called? I'm blanking.
The digital crown.
Yes, the crown. That was pretty cool. And then of course there's nightstand mode. Just little things that just make such a big difference.
Sure. So yeah, it does. So I'm looking forward to that. I think the watch experience is going to get a lot better just with third-party apps by themselves. I think that's going to be huge.
And this is exactly what we said in the very beginning when it was launched. The was like, give it 6 months, give it a year, and it's going to be phenomenal. And it's already getting better. So
yeah. And then so that's Apple Watch. And the very last thing we'll touch on very quickly, this was their one last thing that Tim Cook dropped. And honestly, personally, as an Apple fan and somebody who's been watching these things for a very long time, I almost feel like the Apple Music app was not worthy of the one last thing phrase to be used on it.
One more thing.
One more thing. Yeah, sorry. I just completely sound like an idiot there talking about what an Apple fan I am and then use the wrong damn word. It didn't thrill me. I use Spotify. I used iTunes Radio for a while. I switched over to Spotify. I'm a paid Spotify user. My wife and I both, because I like the unlimited content. I like the browsing and the creating a playlist, and it's got great features. Apple Music does the same thing, but to me is a lot uglier and a lot more clouded with just noise all over the app that just makes it just not attractive to me at all.
Yeah, watching the demo, and I actually could only it only kept my attention for maybe 10 minutes. He was going through the demo, and him running through the demo, he knew what he was doing, he knew where he was going, but watching it, I got lost a few times. I didn't know what was going on. So I think getting around it's probably going to be a little more difficult for me. And then of course, the only thing that I think maybe it has over other like Spotify was that you can watch videos with it now too. And I think with this day and age, I think music videos have lost its sparkle, and I think maybe this will reignite it a little bit. And then the other thing was that it's a paid subscription. What was it? $10, $9.99.
Yeah, you're right. They had there was a couple things in addition to the music videos, the unlimited, library, play whatever you want, playlist. They had the 24/7 live radio station that Beats One radio, which I guess is kind of cool. Nothing that's going to be a make or break feature for me though. And then they also had that Connect section, which was basically like their social media built in to the music app for artists to upload and post, updates and pictures and video clips and song lyrics. It's like Ping. Remember when they made Ping back in the day, built into iTunes, and nobody freaking used it ever?
That's what everybody's looking for is another social media outlet. That's just what we need right now.
One more. So I wasn't at all thrilled by that. Even though they brought Drake on stage and he was talking about how awesome it was for artists, and I get it. I mean, I write on the side and try to promote myself that way, and I can I'm all for having another tool to get into the face of potential consumers, but as a user, again, it was too much. It was too noisy. It was priced well, and the fact it's the same price per month as Spotify for a single user. It's $9.99 a month. But where they really got the advantage, and I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see Spotify change this to compete if Apple starts taking away business from them, is that they have a family plan that's $14.99 a month, which is good for up to 6 different users. Right now, I pay $14.99 for just me and my wife. It's basically $10 for the main subscription and then $5 for each additional user. So I'm paying $15 for 2 users. I could pay $15 for 6 users with Apple. That was, in my opinion, really the only advantage, other than just being in the Apple ecosystem, which I already have so much of my time, money, and energy invested into.
Yep. I mean that that's the biggest hook that they have, that it is already built into the ecosystem.
Right.
Other than that, then it wasn't very shiny. It wasn't very thrilling.
Right. And it might actually be too late also. Not really. I mean, they're going to make money off it. They're going to get subscribers, because we both know that digital media, music particularly, is turning more towards a subscription-based model. The data is showing that people are buying less music and they're just listening to more via subscriptions and streaming services.
Yeah.
Which I understand. I get it. I'm doing the same thing. But they might be too late to the game. MKBHD, Marquez Brownlee, another tech YouTuber that you and I both watch, actually tweeted and said, he said something like, "I would say RIP to Spotify, but what it really is a data migration tool," because he said it just takes too much time and effort to rebuild and migrate over all of his playlists and songs and everything he's already done on Spotify for who knows how long.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this might be seriously one of those cases where even if Apple builds a great product, if they're too late to the game, is anybody really going to jump on board?
Yeah, because I mean, Apple's known for their innovation, and this wasn't innovative.
No, just they're joining the party that's already been going on.
Yeah. So while it probably is a good product, and if it was maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it would have been amazing. But like you said, maybe just too late.
Yep, exactly. All right, well, that's basically everything Apple covered, or everything Apple talked about today in a nutshell. Anything else you want to add?
No. I mean, I thought it was a good keynote. Like you said, it was pretty low key. A lot of performance enhancements, and I think it kind of opened the doors for a lot of things. I think the Metal framework is going to be huge. I think the open source for Swift 2 is going to be huge. And I think the search features, the enhancements for Spotlight on the El Capitan and the iOS 9 are great. Yeah, I hate saying it.
I'm already laughing at the name when I hear somebody say it, and like serious conversation. It just doesn't fit.
Oh, and then of course the broadening of Apple Pay. So.
Yep. That's good. I like what you said about opening doors for things. I'm now more than ever, I think, curious to see what kind of potential new hardware we see at the fall keynote, because I think with this multitasking, I can't say definitely ever with Apple, but I think that feature alone makes sense that they may be working on a larger screen iPad. And of course, we did mention, which is completely absent from today's conference, was any mention whatsoever of the Apple TV or any type of development kit for the Apple TV. And leading up to the conference, everybody thought, oh, this is going to be where they finally announce their new set-top box. They're going to announce the API. It's going to be great. They're going to announce their new TV subscription service. And then like a week before the keynote, all of a sudden someone got the bomb, some analyst or some insider, and was like, nope, they couldn't get everything put together quick enough. Nothing. And sure enough, we didn't even hear the word TV mentioned this year, which is killing me. But maybe we'll actually see something for that in the fall. I don't know.
I got really excited at the one more thing. I was like, it could go either way. I was excited, but I was let down. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm excited about it. So we'll see.
All right, guys. Well, that's everything. We might have a video in the next day or so with just a more detailed view of our top 3 favorite things from today's WWDC keynote. But until then, thanks for watching this.
All right. Thanks, guys.